Well, just in, the Director General Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, said in light of the urgent situation in Iran, he is convening an emergency meeting of the IAEA Organisation Board of Governors tomorrow. Well, joining us live now for more is political analyst Joe Siracusa. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're across this certainly very well indeed. And in terms of the decision that Donald Trump did to basically attack these 3 nuclear facility sites, were you surprised at all? What's your reaction from what he did?
Yeah, I am surprised, Janie. Look, he promised the international community and the Iranians that he'd think about this for 2 weeks. 2 weeks became 2 days, and then he dropped those bombs on them at 2:31 a.m. in the morning this morning. And so he surprised a lot of people here. He's ignored his own intelligence advice, so he's going to make a lot of enemies there. There are 18 intelligence agencies in the United States, and they cost over $72 billion a year, and he simply dismissed them in favor of his own instincts and hunches here. He's also left the European diplomatic community holding the bag here because they've been talking to the Iranian foreign minister, and they wouldn't have known what was going to happen. So, at the end of the day, the United States is in a fraught position. The Secretary General of the UN, Guterres, has said that we're in a very dangerous place because we're in a position now to escalate this thing. And of course, the Iranians can respond with terrorism, sleeper cells, all kinds of things. They can get to the American bases, the American cities. So the president's talking like this is a done deal. Well, it's not a done deal. Iran is 92 million people. And like Americans and others, they will rally around the flag for 30 to 60 days, and then they'll look at their options. But this was an enormous risk on the president's side. And I'll tell you this, in my long study of war and peace, this guy, like a lot of American presidents in other situations, he's thrown the dice. This is not a gimme kind of thing. This is not something that just has an automatic conclusion. The president of the United States has thrown the dice. And so, now you got to just buckle up and see where we go from here.
Interesting you say that, because we've heard from other leaders saying, they are for his decision. A lot of the coalition members coming out this afternoon saying they support Donald Trump's decision with those recent strikes. And then, just an hour or so ago, we're hearing from Israel. We're hearing from people in bunkers. They're messaging us, Joe, saying that the strikes are big and loud, and some of them, we believe, we're being told they are hitting areas like synagogues and around Jerusalem. So certainly sounds like a retaliatory strike. And I guess, one of the big questions, of course, is what next? How will Iran potentially, retaliate even further? What's your estimate here? What do you think will play out?
Well, Iran has over 3,500 major missiles in their arsenal. And they could attack, American bases in Bahrain and the Gulf states. They're all within range. Of course, Israeli neighborhoods are all in range, and they might pour down on that. But they'll probably close the Strait of Hormuz. They'll probably mine it, and they'll trap the American fleet on the Persian Gulf. So that'll cause all kinds of havoc, and so they can do that. But I expect the Iranians will pour it on. They have the ability to do a great deal of damage. And let me just say this, Jenny, this is a strange kind of war. Like you, I've been watching this now for the last couple of weeks, and we don't have armies meeting each other on some plateau. What we have are enemy governments lobbying missiles and rockets and drones on each other's civilian populations. This is looking a lot like what's happening in Gaza, where there's a great deal of damage and not much solved. I mean, it's a very strange kind of a war. And I know what Trump was doing. He was trying to short circuit this kind of violence. On the other hand, we have no way to stop the Iranians unless you bomb the hell out of them. And who's going to occupy a country of 92 million people? The Israelis can't, and the United States won't. So, we're caught in the middle here. So we got some good ideas, which are going to bring some bad ideas. And anyone who doesn't like this can say, well, look, this is morally corrosive. This doesn't solve any problems. On the other hand, people will say, look, this is something that was a long time in coming. And now it's been 46 years since the Iranians captured those American hostages at the embassy in Tehran at the beginning of the hostage crisis. And so in many ways, much of what's going on, in my mind, is sort of unfinished business. Jimmy
You
Carter
mentioned,
hesitated a long time ago, and Donald Trump is not.
and you mentioned potentially them closing the Strait of Hormuz, and just reading up on it, it's around 55 kilometres wide at its narrowest, but 90 kilometres wide at the widest point. So it would be pretty hard to close that, and certainly, but it is a very important strait, isn't it? We've already seen disruption there.
Yeah, you can't interdict it with rockets and everything, but you can put mines in there. You can make it very, very difficult. And, the first American warship that sinks it because it hits an Iranian mine, that's going to be very difficult. Look, Donald Trump is built for action, but he's not the kind of guy that likes to go to Andrews Air Force Base and meet all these American soldiers and Navy people in coffins and body bags. I mean, that's not Donald Trump. He doesn't want to explain to his MAGA base why all these lives are being lost. So he's going for the big hit, trying to stop all this. But look, you can close the Strait of Hormuz without physically throwing ships up across the line. You can make it difficult. You can make the supply chain difficult. And 90% of Chinese take 90% of the Iranian oil. So there's all kinds of people who are going to be hurting on this. Now, watch the sidelines. Watch what the Europeans are doing. China's silent. Russia is silent right now. But you can bet there are a lot of people in the global south who don't like what they're seeing, and there'll be a lot of people sitting on the fence. And so the most important thing Australia has to do now is get its social messaging across. You had Hastie there saying that the opposition thought it was a good idea. I don't know exactly what the Albanese government's going to put out there in the morning, but now people have to be told exactly what's happening and what role they have in it. Maybe they'll be asked to do something down the line.
All right, we're yet to hear more from Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defence. In a couple of hours, they're having another meeting. As you mentioned, we are yet to hear from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and we look forward to hearing more there. Joe Siracusa, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane. Bye-bye.